My name is Wade Cruz, and I'll be 67 years old in 2 months. I'm a retired airline pilot. I live on Cape Cod, and when I was in college, I worked at Republic Steel for 2 summers between my freshman and sophomore year and between my sophomore and junior year in college. And I worked at Republic Plant on South Park in Buffalo, New York. And the reason I found out about it up there, I had a fraternity brother from New York who worked at Republic the previous summer. He was graduating that year, and he told a couple of us about the great deal up there, how much money he made. He made $2.50 an hour, plus all the overtime he wanted. And that sounded great to us because our summer jobs there in Florida, construction, paid around 50 to 75 cents an hour. And so I was working my way through college, and it sounded like and that was the thing to me, a good thing for me to do, and also it sounded exciting because I had not been out of the South very much at all. I was attending Florida State University, and I grew up in Tampa, and I'd only been out of the South a couple of times, and I was pretty excited about the opportunity. So 4 of us decided we would do it, so we sent our applications up there. We were accepted for summer jobs. And we drove up there. We piled in one of the guys' cars that had a car, and we drove up there. And we stayed with a family, a man and his wife. He worked at Republic Steel. And they took all 4 of us in for room and board. And we stayed with them while we were working at Republic. And the second year we went up there, we actually rented a house, and that was a lot better because we had a lot more privacy. My fraternity brother that worked up there gave us a couple of phone numbers of a couple of girls he knew up there, and it worked out fine for me. I dated this one girl all summer. It was a blonde and a brunette, and I said, I'll take the blonde. So I called her up, and I ended up dating her all summer. We had a great time, and the brunette didn't work out with my other friend, and I think he had 1 or 2 dates with her, and that was about it. Buffalo was sort of culture shock for me. We had a drinking age of 21 in Florida. And up there it was 18, and we could go to a bar and order a drink. In fact, the girls actually went to bars by themselves, and it was quite a shock to naive me, and being only 18 years old. In fact, this girl asked me to my first cocktail party I'd ever been to, and I'd never had Manhattans before, and I sort of overdid it on the Manhattans, and she had to drive me home that night, but she still kept going out with me anyway. I really enjoyed Buffalo. The people up there were very nice and friendly. We enjoyed going out to Larzak's at the beach. They had 5-cent beers. They were pretty small, but it was quite a novelty. We would go to Bruner's up by UB, and I got hooked on beef on Wick. And also the charcoal, absolutely charred charcoal hot dogs that I absolutely loved. The second summer when we were up there, renting the house, I read the newspaper every day and read the racing results, and got to know at the harness racing track who the good drivers were and who the good horses were. And one day we went to the racetrack. I'd never been before, I haven't been since, but I bet on the daily double and I won it. And I bet $2 and won $40. And I feel like it was because I had read the newspapers and studied it and did it scientifically and found out who the best horses and drivers were, and it worked out. But I didn't press my luck, and I haven't been back since. As far as the job at Republic, I can still remember the sulfur smell in the air as we drove up to the steel mill. We worked swing shifts. Unfortunately, the day shifts were great, 8 to 4. Then the next week we would work 4 to midnight, and then the graveyard shift we would work midnight to 8 in the morning. And you never really got used to it. It was kind of tough in that respect. We would replace people that were on vacation, obviously, simple labor type jobs. And we would show up for work each day, and they would tell us what our job was, and it was different every day. The worst jobs that we had, one time they had a furnace that the bricks had collapsed and fallen out of the top of the furnace, and after it cooled for 24 hours, they had us go in there and throw out the loose bricks. We had to wear 2 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of gloves. We could only stay in there for 5 minutes, and it was still pretty hot. You could scuff the floor, and it was red hot underneath the cinders. And that was probably the worst job. The second worst job was they gave us some hoses, and we went down into the gunnels of the mill. They had like storm sewers under there, and we had to wash them out with hoses, and it was absolutely filthy, dirty, and hot down there, and that was a lousy job. The best job we had was we reported, my friend and I, and he said we were going to share the same job tonight. And they sent us to a place where the hot steel was coming out, and one piece of steel had to go down one side to be taken off, the other piece of steel had to go down the other side to be taken off. And there was a flapper valve that diverted the steel. One piece would come, and we would turn this little switch. We sat on a box, and we would turn this little switch, and a piece would come down. We'd turn the switch the other way. And then a minute later, another piece would come down. And we would sit there and do that for half an hour. And then we would relieve each other. So we'd be half an hour on, half an hour off. And while we're off the half an hour, we would sleep. And there's enough space in between the pieces of steel that we could go out and wake the guy, wake my buddy up, or he could wake me up, and we'd come back and relieve him. And that was probably the easiest job. And that's a little procedure that could probably be designed by a kid in school, automatic switch that's activated by a piece of steel going through to throw it the other way. But this was kind of one of these make-work projects. And in the steel mill, there's a lot of inefficiencies there, a lot of feather bedding. On the graveyard shift, you would see people's feet sticking out of cubby holes everywhere. There would be very old men in their 80s just whipping up dirt into piles. There was a lot of abuses, and that sort of turned me against labor unions while I was there. And another thing that turned me against the union was each summer there was a strike in July that put us out of our summer jobs. We had to go find other jobs in construction at different places. So I came out of that experience being anti-union because of those abuses. Let me see, anything else? We lost our jobs the second summer, and 2 of us moved in with the parents of a fraternity brother that lived there in Buffalo, and stayed with them for the rest of the summer. They were very nice people to do that for us. At the mill, I was very impressed by what I think they call them catchers. where the piece of steel would go through the rollers, large in the beginning, and then get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it would go back and forth through the different set of rollers. And in between the rollers were these guys that had tongs that would catch it as it came through and swing it. It was red hot and soft, and throw it in the next set of rollers. And this seemed like a very crude operation, especially when the rollers broke down and you saw how they put them together with shims and everything. And I'm sure it's all automated nowadays, but these guys had a very dangerous job. I think they made $40,000 a year, which was big money in the 1950s. Overall, the experiences I had at the steel mill, working up there, and the Buffalo experience was great. It enabled me to buy my first car. I bought a 1950, the second summer of 1950 Plymouth, and drove it back to school and used it for the rest of the time I was in college until I went to the Air Force. And last month, my wife and I went over to Buffalo for the first time. I've been there in 47 years. We have a daughter at Syracuse University, so we swung over there and spent a couple of days in Toronto and Niagara Falls and Buffalo. And went over to the place in South Park where the steel mill was, and there's just a big field there, unfortunately. Now, I'm not really sure what happened to Republic Steel. But I did take my wife to get a beef on wick, and she said it's the best sandwich she's ever had in her life. And on the way back from Toronto, we had to stop and get her another one. So I would really like to have somebody send us some Kimmelwick here on Cape Cod, and maybe I can start a business here of beef on wick, because I guess Buffalo is the only place you can get it. Thank you.